Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining me today. And I have a post for you, which is pretty simple here. Let me get back to it and get my screen fixed here. And this is Milk, Nature's First Microbiome Builder. And I just chose it because it has a couple of unique points to make, even though it's older than some of the other ones I've been posting lately. But it is how milk shapes the infant gut, the composition and diversity of the gut microbiome plays a fundamental role in human health. Beginning at birth, and science now recognizes that the trillions of microorganisms living in the digestive tract influence far more than digestion. A healthy gut contributes to immune development, metabolism, behavior, cognition, socialization, and neurological function, which also helps while also helping protect against conditions such as obesity, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, infectious diarrhea, and even colorectal cancer. The first 3 years of life represent a critical window for microbiome development, and during this time, the infant gut undergoes constant change as beneficial microbes establish themselves and mature into a stable microbial community. Colonization begins immediately after birth. Infants delivered vaginally are first exposed primarily to bacteria from their mother's birth canal and intestinal tract, whereas babies born by cesarean are initially colonized mainly by microbes from the mother's skin and the surrounding environment. These microbial differences can influence the composition of the developing gut microbiome. So some people, there's still some arguments going on about this, about whether an infant collects microbes from amniotic fluid or not, and also from the um, board. After birth, diet becomes one of the most important factors shaping this developing ecosystem. During most of the year of life, during most of the first year of life, breast milk or infant formula provides nearly all of an infant's nutrition. Both feeding methods encourage the growth of beneficial bifidobacterium, which quickly become dominant members of the infant gut microbiota. However, breastfed infants typically develop a greater abundance and diversity of bifidobacteria than formula-fed infants. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, and the gradual addition of solid food during the succeeding 6 months of the first year. However, only 25% of infants in the USA achieved this goal, and this was 2019. In 2005, it was only 10%. This early dominance of beneficial bacteria helps establish an intestinal environment that supports healthy digestion, immune maturation, and long-term health. Rather than simply providing nutrients for growth, milk acts as one of nature's first architects of the infant microbiome, supplying specialized compounds that help shape the microbial community during one of the most important periods of human development. So this goes on to say about Human milk oligosaccharides feeding good bacteria, and we already know that. They, they, it's an elegant example of coevolution. Mothers produce nutrients specifically designed not to feed the infant directly, but to nourish the microbes that help protect the infant. So breast milk and formula are not identical. They've made significant nutritional advances, but they still differ from human milk in one important respect. Human milk contains more than 250 different oleosaccharides in concentrations that are 20 to 1,000 times higher than those found in cow's milk. These complex molecules remain difficult to reproduce on a large scale, but trust me, they are trying, and they're looking for them everywhere. Many formulas now include prebiotics, such as GOS and FOS, or polydextrose, to help support beneficial bacteria. While they can provide some similar benefits, they do not fully replicate the diversity and biological activity of the naturally occurring HMOs found in breast milk. As a result, breastfed infants generally develop a microbiome richer in bifido than formula-fed infants. Genetics also matters. Interestingly, not every mother produces the same type of HMOs. The ability to secrete certain fucosylated HMOs depends partly on a gene known as FUT2. Mothers with an active FUT2 gene are called secretors because they produce high levels of these specialized sugars. Mothers without a functional FUT gene are known as non-secretors and produce much lower amounts. These genetic differences influence the infant microbiome because then babies receiving milk rich in these fucosylated HMOs generally develop greater numbers and diversity of bifido. So they continue to study how these differences affect its susceptibility to infections, allergies, obesity, inflammatory bowel disease, and other chronic conditions later in life. The infant microbiome is not intended to remain the same forever. More than 40 different species of bifido have been identified, and the strains that dominate the gut as this child's diet and age change. Breastfed infants are typically colonized by Bifidobacterium infantis, B. breve, and B. bifidum. Among these, B. infantis is uniquely adapted to digest the entire variety of HMOs found in breast milk. In some developing regions of the world, B. infantis may account for up to 90% of the infant gut microbiome. In developed countries such as the United States, however, B. breve and B. bifidum are more commonly found than B. infantis. As milk is gradually replaced by solid foods, the infant microbiome begins a natural transition. The populations of milk-loving bifido decline because their primary food source, milk oligosaccharides, is no longer abundant. They are replaced by adult-associated species of bifido. And then here's a short list here of those types: B. longum, adolescentis, animalis, and others. Unlike infant strains, these bacteria are adapted to digest the complex carbohydrates found in fruits, vegetables, grains, and other plant-based foods rather than milk sugars. So, yeah, naturally, you don't start by eating carrots, but eventually you will be eating plant-based fibers and proteins. Nature's blueprint for early health. Human milk demonstrates that nutrition is about much more than vitamins, minerals, protein, and fat. Its unique oligosaccharides are biological signals that shape the infant microbiome, encourage the growth of beneficial bacteria, and help train the developing immune system. Although genetics, delivery method, antibiotic exposure, and diet all influence the composition of the microbiome, early feeding remains the most critical factor in determining which microbes become established during infancy. By nourishing beneficial bacteria, such as bifido, human milk helps create an intestinal environment that supports healthy digestion, strengthens immune defenses, and promotes normal development during one of the most important stages of life and throughout a lifetime. So, because that was from 2019, I included the 2025 bifido deficit in U.S. infants reflects a growing problem in industrialized countries. And then I have another one here for you from June 25th, 2026. This is from Biotechniques. In a series of mouse experiments, the team fed nursing mothers a diet enriched with TVA. This nutrient was passed on to their pups through breast milk, where it promoted the development of a broader and more effective immune cell population, particularly CD4 T cells that are important for adaptive immunity. Interestingly, this advantage appeared only when the mice were exposed to TVA during breastfeeding. Pups that were exposed to TVA via the mother's diet during pregnancy, but were then nursed by a foster mother who was not on a TVA-rich diet, did not have these improved responses to infection. So this is just pointing out the nutritional, what happens with malnutrition in a mother. We saw that only postnatal exposure to TVA through breastfeeding is important to train neonatal T cells. And this can have long-lasting imprinting effects. Even in adulthood, when we challenge the mice with influenza, the ones that were exposed to higher TVA levels during breastfeeding responded better when battling the infection. So this just also points out that HMOs are the root of the food chain, and cows are also mammals. So cows have to eat what cows are supposed to eat. Humans have to eat what humans are supposed to eat. And then you both benefit each other as the beginning of the food chain. So another thing I wanted to share with you is that in the previous post, no, I generally don't do this. I generally try to avoid getting into the weeds too much because I prefer to simplify information. But from the last post, how breast milk teaches the immune system tolerance, I have included here for you where dendritic cells come from, and then where macrophages come from, and then how they work together. Because I'm quite sure people are going to say, well, now that you're on to HMOs, does that mean you're giving up MAF? No, not at all. um, so let me just, I tried to simplify this as much as possible for you. So it was human milk oligosaccharides promote immune tolerance via direct interactions with human dendritic cells. Dendritic cells originate in the bone marrow from hematopoietic stem cells, which are the precursor cells for all blood cells. From the bone marrow, these precursors circulate through the bloodstream to tissues throughout the body, where they mature into highly specialized sentinels that patrol for pathogens. Macrophages are derived from monocytes, white blood cells in the blood, or from precursor cells in the yolk sac and fetal liver during embryonic development. So monocyte-derived macrophages are adult development, but they basically come from the same precursor cells. And then tissue-resident macrophages are in embryonic development, and they also come from the same precursor cells. So then it tells you what they do. And then macrophages and regulatory T cells, TREGs, have a deeply intertwined reciprocal relationship. Rather than acting as separate entities, they communicate constantly in a two-way street to regulate immune responses, promote tissue repair, and resolve inflammation. The relationship between these two critical immune cells unfolds in three primary ways. Macrophages shape TREGs, and TREGs regulate macrophages. So it's like trying to separate the chicken and the egg. The chicken came first, but you still can't separate the chicken and the egg, right? So why would I do that? And that's just, I generally don't do that. I generally do not get down to the lowest molecule on the planet, even though I can. And I am going to, when I finish this revised edition of my book, because authorities need to know this. So another thing that happened is that you go to my About page. I had to change my About page because I downloaded an app and I accidentally deleted my About page top section. And it got destroyed and I can't get it back. So I had to redo that. And I don't know what's going on with my site. Personally, I think it's AI, but I don't know. I also added about galactose and how your body needs galactose for the immune system to see. And galactose is the foundational building block for all HMOs. So you can, and then they elongate, and then they form branching and decoration. They are all important for your immune system to see properly, see and respond properly. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully, this will pass the test, and I'm not going to get flagged again, which really worries me lately because it's like trying to evade an idiot, which is AI. Which I would also like to say, I've spent 30 years of my life um, doing this for clients, helping them simplify complex information down to the most simple communication possible. In my particular instance, that would have been logo design, but it's also just part of my personality. And everyone in my family, I'm a melancholic, and everyone in my family is a melancholic. My husband is a web developer. And I'd also like to say that AI is making logistics literally impossible. And this is about to create a major problem in society because what we have focused on our entire life is helping transfer through logic, helping transfer real value to real people to put on their real table. And AI right now is making that a logistics nightmare. So I would like to say that. And part of the reason we both love this is that, as I said, we're melancholics. So I'm just going to tell you what that basically means in shorthand. Melancholic individuals uniquely combine rich, sensitive artistry with razor-sharp analytical and logical abilities. This rare blend creates deep thinkers who excel at producing emotionally profound works and systematically solving complex problems. So they can easily foresee the outcomes of a project, breaking down complex tasks into logical, step-by-step plans. And their critical eye helps them spot inconsistencies and hidden flaws that others might easily miss, making them excellent editors, researchers, or engineers. So that's basically everyone in my house is a melancholic. So I'd just like to say that AI, it does not have that function because it's not human, and that 50% of systems that have that 50 systems that have incorporated AI code are becoming a logistics nightmare. And we both see that. So you can't eat bites. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And it's just becoming. I personally am. I'm personally am extricating myself from as many platforms as I possibly can, and I'm incorporating more of an analog life into my life because, as I said, this is going to require senior human engineers to untangle this knot, if at all. And right now, it's becoming a logistical nightmare for commerce, and that includes all commerce, digital commerce, real commerce, from um, industry to warehouses to transport systems to door table. And that's where we have both worked for our entire lives, and we're both seeing the effects of it. And I don't know, I'm not the web developer in the family, but he is, and I could already see this coming in more ways than one, but I did not realize how many companies have incorporated junk AI code into their infrastructure. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And you take that information and use it how you will. Okay, everyone. I will see you next time. And by the way, my second personality trait is probably choleric. So that makes me like a Lucy. So I'm just kind of like, just do what I say and everything will be fine. And it's just my personality. Okay, everyone. Thanks again. I appreciate your time and I surely hope you will visit and take this information to heart and then use it to help other people. You have a great day and a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.